Friday night rolls around, you're craving pizza. The thought of that cheesy, delicious slice is making your mouth water. You can almost smell the aroma of freshly baked dough and melted cheese wafting through the air. It's been a long week, and you feel like you deserve a treat. But then, a thought crosses your mind. But you also want to save money for that new video game. The latest release is just around the corner, and you've been eyeing it for weeks. You know that if you spend too much on pizza tonight, you might not have enough left to buy the game when it comes out. It's a tough decision. This, my friend, is economics in action. It's not just about big corporations or stock markets, it's about the choices we make every day. The trade-offs, the opportunity costs, and the decisions that shape our lives. Every day, we make choices with limited resources, our money and time. Whether it's deciding how to spend our paycheck or how to allocate our time between work, family, and leisure, these decisions are all part of the economic puzzle. Economics is about understanding how we make those choices. It's about analyzing the costs and benefits, weighing the pros and cons, and making informed decisions that maximize our well-being. It's about figuring out how to get the most out of what we have. Whether it's stretching our budget to cover all our expenses or finding ways to save for the future, economics helps us navigate the complexities of life. Do we splurge on the extra-large pizza? The one with all the toppings that will satisfy our cravings but might leave our wallet a little lighter? Or do we order a smaller one and have some cash left over, enough to maybe buy that game or save for something else we've been wanting? These everyday decisions might seem small, but in reality, they are the building blocks of our economic lives. Each choice we make has a ripple effect, influencing our future decisions and shaping our financial landscape. But they add up to paint a bigger picture of how our economy works. From the individual level to the global scale, the principles of economics are at play in every decision we make. Economics is more than just numbers and graphs. It's a social science that explores human behavior, our desires, and how we go about fulfilling them. It's about understanding the motivations behind our choices and the impact they have on the world around us. It's about people, their wants, and the choices they make. From the food we eat to the products we buy, every decision is a reflection of our values and priorities. So the next time you're debating between pepperoni and extra cheese, remember that you're not just making a simple choice about dinner. Remember, you're not just ordering dinner, you're engaging in the fascinating world of economics. Every bite you take is a testament to the complex web of decisions and trade-offs that define our lives. Here's a simple truth: we all want more than we can have. We want bigger houses, faster cars, and more vacations. Economists call this scarcity. There's only so much stuff to go around, and it can't satisfy everyone's desires. Think about your dream vacation. Do you picture a tropical island, a European adventure, or maybe a trek through the Himalayas? Now imagine trying to do all three at once. Chances are you'll run into some limitations. Time and money, those pesky resources, get in the way. Scarcity is a fundamental concept in economics. It forces us to make choices. We can't have everything, so we have to decide what's most important. This constant tension between our unlimited wants and limited resources is what drives economic activity. Let's talk about coffee. Imagine a sudden frost destroys half the world's coffee beans. What happens to the price of your morning latte? You guessed it, it goes up. This is the basic principle of supply and demand at work. When the supply of coffee beans goes down, but the demand for caffeine stays high, the price increases. It's like an auction. The fewer the beans, the more people are willing to pay for them. On the other hand, if a new coffee-growing region is discovered, the supply increases and prices might drop. Supply and demand is like a dance. When they're in sync, prices remain relatively stable. But when one takes the lead, prices can fluctuate, impacting our everyday lives. Understanding this dance helps us make sense of why things cost what they do. Economics can be understood at different levels. Microeconomics is like looking through a magnifying glass. It focuses on individual decisions made by consumers and businesses. For example, it examines how a family decides to spend its income, or how a company determines the price of its product. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, is like looking at the entire map. It deals with the big picture, the overall health of the economy. It looks at things like inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. Think of it as studying the forest, while microeconomics studies the trees. Both perspectives are important for understanding how the economy works. Microeconomics helps us understand the behavior of individual players, while macroeconomics shows us how these individual actions add up to create larger economic trends. Section 5. Economic flavors of the world. Just like there are different ways to bake a cake, there are different ways to organize an economy. Each country has its unique recipe influenced by its history, culture, and values. Let's explore three main types: market economies, command economies, and mixed economies. Each of these systems has its own distinct characteristics and ways of functioning. Imagine a bustling farmer's market. Farmers bring their produce, and customers decide what to buy and how much they're willing to pay. This is a simplified example of a market economy, where prices are determined by supply and demand. In a market economy, individuals and businesses make most of the economic decisions. They decide what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom to produce it. The government's role is usually limited to regulating and ensuring fair competition. Now, picture a bakery, where the government decides what kind of bread to bake, how much to produce, and sets the price. This resembles a command economy, where the government controls most economic decisions. In a command economy, the government plans and directs economic activity. It owns most of the resources in businesses, and it decides what goods and services will be produced, how they will be produced, and who will receive them. This system aims to achieve specific social and economic goals, such as reducing inequality or ensuring that everyone has access to basic necessities. However, it can also lead to inefficiencies and a lack of innovation. In reality, most countries have mixed economies, combining elements of both market and command economies. They might have free markets for some goods and services while the government regulates others, like healthcare or education. Mixed economies aim to balance the benefits of a free market with the need for government intervention to address market failures and ensure social welfare. For example, in many countries the government provides public goods and services, such as national defense, public education, and infrastructure, which are not easily provided by the private sector. Additionally, governments often regulate industries to protect consumers, workers, and the environment. This can include setting safety standards, enforcing labor laws, and controlling pollution. The balance between market forces and government intervention varies from country to country, depending on their specific needs and priorities. Understanding these different economic systems helps us appreciate the diversity of approaches to managing resources and meeting the needs of people around the world. As we continue to explore the economic flavors of the world, we see that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Each system has its strengths and weaknesses, and the best approach often involves finding the right mix for a given context. By learning from each other and adapting to changing circumstances, countries can develop more effective and equitable economic systems. Ultimately, the goal is to create economies that not only generate wealth, but also improve the quality of life for all citizens. Section 6. The money go-round. Have you ever wondered where your money goes when you buy something? It doesn't just disappear, it flows through the economy like water in a cycle. This is called the circular flow model. Imagine households as one group and businesses as another. Households provide labor to businesses and receive wages in return. Businesses use these wages to buy goods and services from other businesses or pay their workers, who then use their income to buy more goods and services, and so on. The government also plays a role in this flow, collecting taxes and spending on public goods and services. This continuous cycle of spending and earning keeps the economy moving. Understanding the circular flow helps us see how interconnected we all are in the economic system. Section 7. The shrinking shopping cart. Remember that time you went to the grocery store and were surprised by how much less you could buy with the same amount of money? It's a common experience these days, and it's not just your imagination. Prices are indeed going up, and the amount you can get for your hard-earned cash is shrinking. That, my friend, is inflation in action. Inflation is like a silent thief, gradually eroding the value of your money. You might not notice it immediately, but over time it becomes glaringly obvious. It's the steady increase in the general price level of goods and services over time. This means that the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services than it did before. It's a phenomenon that affects everyone, from the average consumer to large businesses. Think of it like this. Imagine your shopping cart represents your purchasing power. When inflation is low, your cart is full, and you can buy a lot with your money. But as inflation rises, that cart starts to look emptier and emptier. With inflation, that cart seems to shrink because you can buy fewer things with the same amount of money. It's a visual representation of how inflation eats away at your purchasing power, making it harder to maintain the same standard of living. Inflation can be caused by various factors, such as increased demand, rising production costs, or even government policies. For instance, if there's a surge in demand for a product but the supply remains the same, prices will go up. Similarly, if the cost of raw materials increases, the final product will also become more expensive. While a small amount of inflation is normal, high inflation can erode our purchasing power and make it harder to afford basic necessities. This is particularly challenging for families on a tight budget, as they have to make tough choices about what to buy and what to forego. It's one of the key challenges that economists and policymakers grapple with. They have to find a balance between fostering economic growth and keeping inflation in check. Too much inflation can lead to economic instability, while too little can stifle growth. It's a delicate balancing act that requires careful monitoring and timely interventions. Section 8, Economics in a Nutshell. So there you have it, a crash course in the basics of economics. We've covered the concepts of scarcity, supply and demand, micro and macroeconomics, different economic systems, the circular flow, and inflation. Understanding these fundamental ideas can help us make sense of the world around us. From deciding how to spend our money to understanding global economic trends, economics is all about choices, incentives, and consequences. By grasping these basic principles, we can become more informed citizens, smarter consumers, and better decision makers in our own lives.